Transforming our world. You are welcome to Transforming Our World. How a God centered mind and heart transforms everything. Now, let's dive into politics, religion, leadership, philosophy, and lifestyle. This is Yao Frimpon's Network. I want to take a journey with you on how you can have a God centered mind and heart that can transform your life and how that transformation can affect your thinking and change your destiny and help you change your home, your family, your community, your country, and for that matter, the world. You see, a God centered mind and heart transforms everything. How does it do so? It does so by shifting the focus from self centeredness and worldly perspective to a life that is anchored in divine truth, purpose, and peace. Now, this transformation is not just a mere improvement of behavior, but then it is a foundational personal development strategy that is facilitated by the spirit of the creator of this world, resulting in a new desire, transformed character, and a restored life. And when the creator of our world is at the center of everything, life changes and life becomes better. And that is because you begin to operate out of hope rather than fear. You begin to operate in gratitude rather than complain. And as you travel with me on this journey and you surrender to this process, your life will become a living sacrifice and you will produce a spiritual fruit that will lead to a lasting, authentic change that self-improvement cannot achieve. We must work together to make the world a better place for all of us. I am Desmond Teddy. Now, before we arrive at the real development of this podcast, we need to assess the future. We need to assess ourselves. We need to assess what has been happening in our world. We need to find out what has gone wrong and why we did what we did to bring us to our current situation. For that matter, I would like us, first and foremost, to discuss key historical drivers of current challenges. And so first, we are looking at the past and some of the key historical drivers of our current challenges. Now, to be honest, we are facing challenges, aren't we? Yes, we are. And I'm going to show you. You see, history is important. It is important because it provides us with context for the present. History helps us shape our identity and it offers us lessons that guide our future decisions. And so when we analyze historical patterns and the mistakes and the victories, what happens is that we gain the critical context that is needed to make informed decisions. And so it is important for our development, and that is because history provides the necessary lessons and the collective memory we need to understand the present and to shape the future. And so when we drive into history, it can serve as our ultimate survival guide. And so studying what happened in the past will also prevent us from repeating errors. It will help us to build our cultural identity and provide the wisdom that is necessary to innovate and navigate the challenges ahead of us. And so the first question we need to ask ourselves is this: how did we get where we are today? How did we get here? There is so much evil in our world, so much evil. And why is there so much evil? And how did we get to where we are currently? And so the feeling that there is an overwhelming evil in the world, that alone is a profound human experience. We all see that, and most of the people in the world experience that. And so the evils we all witness in the past and today are mostly rooted. They are rooted in the observation of violence. They are rooted in the observation of selfishness and suffering. This is what we see, and this is what we all witness around us. But the question of how we arrive at this point is complex. And it is viewed differently by all human beings. Some people view the evils in our world through theological structures. And you see, theological structures or answers are often challenged by the evidential problems of evil. Now, evidential problem of evil, according to the philosophers, they argue that the vast amount of suffering, particularly innocent suffering, makes the existence of a loving God unlikely. And so this is how individuals navigate a broken world that is characterized by suffering, injustice, and uncertainty. And that makes people to ask questions why there is God, but he allows humans to suffer. Now, the question of why a loving God allows suffering, that one alone is a profound central human concern. I agree with that. And this is what the theologians and philosophers address as the problem of pain. And now the proposition is that if God is all good and all powerful, he would prevent pain, yet suffering exists. And so because of this, some people conclude that God is either not all powerful or not perfectly good. And some also view the evils in our world through psychological means. Now, the psychologist says that evil doesn't happen because of supernatural force, but rather evil is a product of human cognition. That is a product of human thinking, is a product of human personality and social context. And now, for example, when we see poverty all around us, but then a few people living in wealth, it is because those who live in wealth sometimes use violence as instruments to acquire personal wealth and material gain. Now, this view shows that the concentration of wealth in many cases doesn't come because of merit or innovation, but they come because of a deliberate process that involves harm, that involves systematic inequality and the exploitation of resources. And that may be one major reason why so many people live in poverty. And other view evil in the world through sociological lenses across the world. Now here, this is where inequality, violence, poverty, and systematic injustice take place in our world. And so when we shift our focus from individual moral failures to the structural, cultural, and institutional forces, we create or we allow problems and evils to exist. And as individuals, we have responsibilities. Because if we fail in our responsibilities, the consequences will be a dysfunctional system, a system that can potentially create evil in our world or allow harm to persist. What do you see? And how do you see the world today? Do you see the evils in our world through theological structures, or through psychological means, or through sociological lenses? What do you see? Key historical drivers of current challenges: cultural violence, too many sins, and injustice. And so we want peace and not war. But it seems the world is saturated with problems of war. The world is saturated with conflicts and violence. Now, what are some of the current issues or examples of historical and current drivers of challenges we face in our world today? Now, to name but a few, we cannot forget to mention the genocide and mass murder in places like Rwanda in 1994. We cannot also forget the apartheid regime in South Africa, where blacks in their own country were like slaves. We cannot forget the Cambodian genocide of 1975 to 1979. And we are looking at the mass killing by the communist regime in the middle of the 20th century. We cannot forget why others can just cause harm to other human beings. This must stop. This must stop. It is forbidden. This must not happen again in our world. And we must all work together to stop it. We hear of slavery. We hear of human torture and sadism. We hear of things that goes to the extent of destroying people's life. And often we hear of extreme violence that is used not just for control, but for the personal gratification of the perpetrator. We hear of child exploitation. There is extreme poverty and starvation in many parts of the world. Child labor and exploitation, they are one of the most prominent social phenomena that have spread in various communities with devastating effects on the lives of children. And not least, we hear of war and warmongering. We can here quote the scripture. What does the scripture say about all these kind of things? The scripture informs us, and I quote, "You will hear wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nations, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famine and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then you'll be handed over to be persecuted and to put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved." This is a scripture from the Bible, Matthew 24, 6 to 13. And now looking at these signs, according to the creator of our world, these are the beginning of birth pains, indicating that they are not the end itself, but precursors to it. And so looking at the turmoil that include famine and earthquake, this is described as the beginning of sorrows in our world. That whilst lawlessness increase, the love of many people will wax cold or diminish. It's not a good news. This is not good at all. So now, no matter what the tragedy ahead of us is, this is a call for stability and faith. So that while the world will experience increasing unrest, we should not panic. That is a message from the creator of our world. But we should trust that these events are part of God's plans and a sign of the unfolding future. That means that we must all remain vigilant and faithful rather than fearful amid the escalating global and spiritual unrest. We must, however, do all we can to end the global unrest. We must do that together, and we must not be among those contributing to the evils of our world. So if you are listening to this podcast, then be part of the ongoing process whereby we contribute together as a force, a dynamic force, to end the evils of our world. These are key historical drivers of current challenges: cultural violence, too many sins, and injustice. Now, another area of concern is systematic discrimination and racism. All around us, in almost every community of nations, we see many that have experienced systematic discrimination and racism. We see corporate structures that prioritize profit by reducing also wages, failing to provide safe working conditions, or using children as labor, the widening gap between the rich and the poor. And frequently, this is reinforced by tax system and opportunity hoarding. And so we see all kinds of exploitation of human life. And this has made others treat people as objects to be used rather than individuals with their own rights and their own feelings. Now, people are forced to work in many conditions under threat of violence or punishment. And often some receive no pay at all or little pay. And victims may have their identity, their documents confiscated, and some experiencing physical or sexual violence. We hear of many Africans traveling to the Arabian world where they are molested, some of them receiving no pay, with others having their movement restricted and working exclusively long hours. This is inhumane and this must stop. So the world society now today is structured in such a way that it is even easy to accommodate racism and discrimination. And we find almost everywhere deep-seated inequalities in social structures. And these include laws, residential segregation, environmental injustice, and criminal justice. These, if not taken proper care, can produce or condone widespread oppression and affect innocents and the vulnerable. Now, systematic racism and discrimination, these are core determinants of health, and they contribute to inequalities in life expectancy. In the general sense, to be honest with you, they directly contribute to lower life expectancy. They contribute to high morbidity and the increased mortality for marginalized racial and ethnic groups. Research shows that, with significant mortality gaps. And so, not to mention implicit bias and discrimination within even the medical system in many parts of our world, leading to unequal treatment, leading to delayed diagnosis and lower quality care. And this contributes in most cases to higher infant mortality and lower overall life expectancy. There are other instances of discrimination with restricted access to resources, restricted access to education and housing and quality health care. Now, these structural inequities, I'll call it structural inequities, they are often rooted in historical policies, and they continue to manifest through economic, social, and physical outcomes. You are looking at systems that are self-perpetuating, where past injustices shape our institutional policies. And so when we lay these kind of foundations, it becomes hard and impossible to dismantle even when explicit discrimination is removed. These are key historical drivers of current challenges: cultural violence, too many sins, and injustice. And besides crime against humanity and systematic cruelty, we witness social and systematic evils. People in many parts of the world today face hardship. They face hardship due to a lack of access to quality education, healthcare, and well-paying jobs. There are other crimes and social evils that include law-based separation of races that restrict right movements and opportunity of people. So here, there is structural failure by nations and community of people to provide the basic needs such as food, such as housing and healthcare to a segment of the population, and this often leads to a cycle that is difficult to escape. And so, in addition to this, there is abuse of power for personal gain. So I'm trying to name all these things for you to see how wicked our system is and how wicked our government and communities, some of them are. And so instances of abuse of power for personal gain, they occur when people in authority exploit their position and influence to extract private advantage, to use all these things as financial perks or favors. And so when individuals, when they prioritize their own agenda over their responsibility, and they cause harm and they erode trust in institutions, in most cases, this leads to a breakdown in social cohesion. In other instances, it erodes trust in institutions and diverts public resources from essential services. And there are also systems of government that systematically deprive their own citizens of freedom, deprive their own citizens of dignity and rights. And these are instances of intentional legal maneuvering that are designed to minimize the political influence of specific communities, making their votes during election time countless. People's votes, their mandate, are taken away from them, even though they are citizens of nations. And these are key historical drivers of current challenges: culture of violence, too many sins, and injustice. Now again, think of individual moral evils and vices around us. Think just about people in authority with excessive desire to possess more, even at the expense of others' needs. And so when they prioritize accumulation, when leaders prioritize wealth and opportunities, and these are concentrated at the top, and they leave fewer resources for the broader community, this actually is depriving the people of their right. And this is one of the reasons for absolute poverty among community people. And not only are these disturbing facts, but there are other factors such as spiritual apathy and laziness that also make people refuse to perform good actions, and this result in harm to others. Now, spiritual apathy and laziness, to be honest with you, has brought about conduct disorder and misbehavior among the youth of today. And this, in many cases, violate the rights of others. And these are disturbing and destructive forces meant to regress human progress. Key historical drivers of current challenges: culture of violence, too many sins, and injustice. And so before we can advance as a people, we must deal with them. We must work towards equity to correct historical wrongs. And now, to correct historical wrongs, it will require acknowledging the compounding effects of historical injustices and actively dismantling systematic barriers. It means that we need to replace a one-size-fits-all approaches with targeted actions, and we need to establish a broad aspiration that benefits everyone. It means that we need to identify how different groups or specific neighborhoods are falling behind, and recognize that everyone is situated differently related to social resources. It also means that we need to uncover the specific historical, economic, or systematic barriers that have prevented certain groups from achieving their universal goal. In addition, we must cultivate understanding to combat hatred and division. We must do so by moving past our differences to celebrate shared humanity. And we can dismantle prejudice at its root and build resilient and inclusive societies. It also means we must update our laws and institutions and policies to be more just and effective. This, if put into practice, will shift the focus from narrow compliance to meaningful action and ensure people's rights are protected and the practical outcomes of legislation serve the wider public. You see, policies must undergo change. It must undergo rigorous evidence-based assessment to guarantee that they deliver tangible results. Government make policies that don't actually suit the people but suit themselves. So it is transparent evaluation that actually builds citizen trust in government operation. Now, this shift will allow citizens to verify that state resources are managed fairly and efficiently. Now, another important consideration is that we must take control of our environment by protecting the planet for future generations. They are cutting all the trees. There are no laws protecting our environment. No laws. And so protecting our environment is one of the most critical challenges of our time. And that requires a shift towards sustainability in our daily lives, in our communities, and global policies. Now, these can be some of the major key steps for us to take to wage a war against culture of violence, too many sins, and injustice. Now, throughout history, in our daily life, we see individuals of high character. Now, these individuals are sent to us. They are sent to the world. Some of these good men of excellent and noble character, they often act as a force for good. They act as a force of integrity and positive influence against negativity and selfishness. Our world recognizes and appreciates the men and women who strive to fight evils and help encourage virtues in our world. And so we are grateful to God for such people. Such people hardly come, and the time they come, even the world kills them. The world debases them. The world does not appreciate them. But once God is with them, their purposes are achieved. And so some of these men sat down and made good declaration for the world to follow. Now, some of these come in the form of preamble. For instance, we are looking at the American Declaration of the Rights and Duties of All Humans. And I quote, American Declaration, the preamble states that all men are born free in dignity and in rights, and being endowed by nature with reason and conscience, they should conduct themselves as brothers one to another. And also in another development, this code has a slight variation of Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights under or adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1948. Now, this also declares, and these are important for our studies, to see the use or the value of human beings. And so it declares, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. That in a way is to say that now the fulfillment of duty by everyone is a prerequisite, that is a foundation or is a stepping stone to the rise of all people, whether black, whether white, Asian, or people of ethnic diversity. And so rights and duties, they are interrelated in every social and political activity of man. That means that while rights exalt individual liberty, duties express the dignity of that liberty. But how many have enjoyed such kind of liberty in its actual sense? How many? We see corruption in nations and government. And many of us, we witness and hear about atrocities such as human trafficking, animal cruelty, and disasters that cause significant emotional distress, making it feel as if malicious forces are prevailing among humans. And currently, there are malicious forces we are dealing with. And some of them cyber threats. Some of them increased conflict and the manipulation of information. Although long-term historical trends show a decline in war, but in actual fact, there is a recognized rise in conflicts involving militias and terrorist groups And these are often driven by competition over resources and a breakdown in the rule of law. Look at what is happening in Nigeria. Terrorists. Look at what is happening in Burkina Faso. Terrorist activity. So we see human insiders in nations and institutions seeking personal gain and expressing arrogance or acting out of disgruntlement, and that leads to significant security incidents. How did we get here? And what are we doing to ourselves? Among ourselves, we see greed, we see hatred and bigotry, we see deception, indifference, and not least on the list, we see diseases, pandemic, and natural disaster. What are the main causes of these? Key historical drivers of current challenges: culture of violence, too many sins, and injustice. Now, because of the evils of humanity, the whole creation has been groaning together in pains. There is mourning and crying out of creation due to humanity's actions. Now, let's look at what the scripture says. We will always be referring to the scripture because of the creator of our world. The scripture says, look at the lamentation of the earth. How long will the land mourn and the grass of every field wither? For the evil of those who dwell in it, the beasts and the birds are swept away. The earth is defiled and fading under a curse due to the disobedience of its inhabitants. This is from Jeremiah chapter 12, verse 4. And so we see the land mourns, lands are mourning, and they wither strictly because of the wickedness of human beings, because of moral decay and unfaithfulness of the people living in it. And it is only when we turn away from our wickedness that God promises to restore and show compassion and healing for our world. Our world currently is sick. Our world is sick and it needs healing. We look at natural and physical evils of human suffering on the increase. Look at earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, and wildfire destroying homes and claiming life. Cancer on the increase, malaria, increase in Africa. We look at AIDS and other illnesses that have caused immense physical suffering and death, often affecting children or innocent individuals. So we see all kinds of diseases and sicknesses, accident here and there, death, and mental states like extreme anxiety or disappointment are on the increase. And so whilst natural evils are sometimes independent of human action, human behavior can worsen them. We see efforts of humans have increased deforestation and poor urban planning in many parts of the world and have turned heavy rainfall into devastating floods, making a natural event a greater human tragedy. And similarly, diseases are caused or aggravated by lifestyle choices, some resulting in lung cancer from smoking. And these are the efforts of human beings to destroy our planets has increased. We don't have responsibility to cater for our world. What have we done to ourselves? Culture of violence, too many sins, and injustice. And so now I address these important issues for you to understand and see the situation we find ourselves. And as we go together, step by step, I will unreveal secret things to you, and I will unreveal the real problem behind all this and how together we can resolve them, and how you and me in our state also begin to function properly in our mind, in our life, to deliver and to set free many that are under bondage. And so now kindly subscribe to this. And as we dive into the next podcast, I'll bring you awareness to the problems of our world and how we can resolve them together. See you again in our next podcast.